Afghan ambassador. He's joining us from Colombo in Sri Lanka. And Mr. Haidari, good to have you with us. Let's pick up then on that news from the Fitch credit ratings agency. The economy of Afghanistan is in freefall. What's going to be done to make sure that there is enough funds in Afghanistan to keep the country functioning?
Well, first, I'm still the ambassador of Afghanistan. That has not changed. All our ambassadors are active and working. Secondly, on the economic situation, we just saw the footage of the collapse of the economy, and that is not easy to fix, unfortunately, simply because so much of Afghanistan's capacity has left, and as well as Afghan assets are frozen. So people, as you see, are desperately trying to get their hands on any of the savings that they can withdraw. I think they've been promised to get about $200 or so to just support their families. And as a result, as you see, long lines behind banks in Kabul to get and withdraw that money. So this is a clear, unfortunately, economic governance failure that we are seeing in Afghanistan, simply because of the state collapse and what has been happening over the past 3 months.
And Ambassador Haidari, I do apologise for that, and thank you for the correction. Now, where does this go from here? You mentioned that obviously the state has collapsed, the state as it was. So is this just a time issue? What's going to be done for the recognition of the new government? And will that then bring about more access to the Afghanistan's international funds?
Absolutely, the issue of recognition is a center stage. I think unless that is resolved, it's really hard to see how the financial system in Afghanistan is very much tied to the global international financial systems would take off again. And I think there are many conditions for the Taliban to meet before that recognition comes forth. And that begins from formation of a meaningful, inclusive, and representative government. That's one of the core conditions of the international community, which was recently discussed at a session of the United Nations Security Council in New York. And of course, there are other conditions such as the Taliban cutting ties with terrorist networks, including Al-Qaeda and others, and preventing Afghanistan's territory being used by terrorists now that they have full control, as well as respecting human rights and women's rights, and as well as doing everything that they could and they should to preserve the gains of the past 20 years. So that on the one hand, but we have been calling on the international community to respond to what is an expanding humanitarian crisis. As we see, people have lost their jobs to sectors that used to employ Afghans. Both the government is now gone and the private sector, unfortunately, much of it is closed down. Capital has flown away. People have been abandoning their villages and provinces and fleeing to the neighboring countries. On the one hand, others we saw the airport who have left Afghanistan. So that's where the situation is. So the humanitarian needs are massive and are only growing. That needs to be met, while a transitional government that would form an inclusive and representative government should happen. And as these things happen, then we should see recognition down the road and then resolution of these long-term economic and financial problems.
And Ambassador Haidari, finally then, we are expecting for a government to be announced in the coming day, perhaps in the coming hours. Are you willing to continue serving as part of that government, even if the rights of women in Afghanistan perhaps end up being curtailed?
Well, we will see. We will see what kind of government that is. One is a government that any group could just declare on their own. Another is a government that's national, that's representative, that's inclusive, including meaning women of Afghanistan, the protection of their rights and their future. Because at the end of the day, any sustainable country, a nation, relies on half of its population's being recognized, protected, and enabled to work side by side their male counterpart to drive that society ahead.
Absolutely. Okay. Ambassador Ashraf Haidari, the Afghan ambassador to Sri Lanka, thank you very much for your time, sir. Thank you.